So are you ready for an amazing journey with your family filled with ease, joy, and calm? You may already have a family filled with ease, joy, or calm, or you may desire more of that. So either way, you are going to really benefit from our share this evening. My aim is to finish this by around about 9 o'clock. So I'm going to get moving because we have a lot to cover and I want to give you a lot of value tonight. So once again, thank you for joining. We've got a bunch of people on Zoom. We've got people tuning in on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, remember to say hello so that Andrew can take note that you're there to put you down for the prize draw. So I do really encourage interaction. So whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook, I love interaction, comments, positive things that you would like to share along the way. So let's get moving. So once again, a huge congratulations for joining us in this parenting masterclass. I've called it How to Positively Parent Neurodiverse or Intense Children, but really it is to help parent any children and to improve behaviour and strengthen connections. But I wanted to just add that little bit of speciality tonight because I do tend to, because of my journey with my son, attract families with children who are that little bit more intense. So neurodiverse is probably, it may be a word that you're very familiar with, and it may be something that you're not so familiar with. Now, I have only heard of this in the last couple of years or so, and it's not a term that it was definitely not around when our son was diagnosed back 25 years ago. So according to Harvard Health Publishing, neurodiversity describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There is no one right way of thinking, learning and behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficits. And I actually like that because there's definitely not one way of thinking, learning and behaving. And we do really view things differently. And we don't want kids or people to think they have a deficit because they do view and learn things differently. So the word neurodiversity refers to the diversity of all people, but it has often been used in the context of autism spectrum disorder or ASD, as well as other neurological or developmental conditions such as ADHD and learning disabilities. So if that's neurodiverse, what is neurotypical? So neurotypical really refers to a person or to a group of people who have the brain functions, behaviours and processing considered standard or typical. So whatever standard or typical means, that's what neurotypical is. But I like to embrace the difference in each of us and in our children. So why are you here this evening? You could be here because you're a parent, a grandparent, you could be an educator, you could be somebody who just helps other families with their children. Mostly though, I imagine if you are joining us on this masterclass live or tuning into the replay, it's because you are a parent. So I have brought along with me this evening my little trusty parenting magical wand. So I want you to think about, if I could wave this magical wand after listening into this parenting class this evening, what would you most love to be able to achieve? Or what would you like, how would you like your family to be or not be, maybe? So think about, what you really want to gain out of listening in this evening. And really, if you were future pacing your family for the next 3, 6, 12 months, 2 years, where would you like your family to be? How would you like your relationships to be? Where would you like to see your kids at? How would you like to feel yourself as a parent? So all of those sorts of questions I'd like you to think about this evening. And by the end of our masterclass, I'd love for you to take note of something that you learned this evening that will be helpful for your family and your relationships moving forward. And of course, whenever we take the time to join something like this, I hope that people will take some action steps. So after this evening, what action steps will you take moving forward to enhance or to improve where things are at the moment? So what will we cover in this masterclass? We're going to cover our family's journey and why we are so passionate about helping so many families, especially those with more intense or special needs children. I'm going to share how I was introduced to the Nurtured Heart approach, which is what I'm so passionate about teaching. What is the Nurtured Heart approach, and how can it help all of our relationships, not just those with our children. We'll share some testimonials from people who have been using and learning the Nurtured Heart approach. Naturopath Nathan will be coming on to share some extremely important health and wellness information a little bit later on. And what we can offer you if you want to learn more and strengthen your relationships. We're going to have some great prize giveaways, so do ensure you stick around to the end. Make sure we know you're here. If you're on Zoom, we can see your name, but if you're on Facebook, please say hello in the Facebook chat. Say hello, let us know where you're coming from. Make a comment so we can see you are there, so we can ensure you go into the draw. So for those of you who do stick around to the end, and I hope that's everybody who's on, you will go into the draw for a holiday voucher up to the value of around about $1,000, 2 one-on-one calls with myself valued at $160 to discuss anything you'd like to around children, family, parenting, relationships. And probably the most exciting prize is actually the 50% voucher off your parenting course that you might like to join us in. So please do stick around for those. Andrew, just keep an eye. I've just let a couple of people in Zoom. There are people still coming into Zoom. Okay, so Andrew has already introduced me, so I won't bother going through this again. The only thing that he probably didn't clarify was my degree. So I've got 2 degrees, a degree in the Bachelor of Education. So I was a primary school teacher for many, many years, but my most valued degree is my degree in TTP. And that's actually tried and tested parenting, which I've certainly done a lot of over the years. So I think Andrew covered everything else there. So our story, let me run through this quickly. I have 2 amazing, incredible sons, now adult sons. My youngest son in his very late 20s, my eldest son in his mid to late 30s. I won't give away your age, that's okay. Our second son was born 7.5 years after his big brother. So there's a 7.5-year gap. Nathan, who is the eldest, who you'll hear from a little bit later this evening, was a very quiet, a very passive child, easy to get along with child. Didn't rock the boat and didn't cause any challenges. He was a really good kid. But his younger brother came along with quite a bang. His birth was very, very stressful. From birth onwards, he was very irritable. He did a lot of screaming. Let me know in the chat whether you're on Zoom or on Facebook if you can relate to this. He did a lot of screaming. He was very unsettled. He didn't sleep. He was a very unhappy baby, and Big Brother was unhappy. And of course, my husband Andrew and I were very, very stressed, very, very stressed parents. So his early childhood years were extremely challenging. And by the time he was about 3 to 4 years old, it was quite evident that he was a little busier, a little more hyperactive, a little more aggressive, a little more defiant, a little more intense than the average child. So I went back to work actually in my husband's business, not as a teacher, but I went back to work in my husband's business, and I had to find childcare for my son when he was about 3.5. And we lived in a large country town back then, and there were 5 childcare centres in our town. And he spent a stint in each of those childcare centres. So in one of the centres, he was actually diagnosed by a counsellor, and he was then diagnosed by a paediatrician, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, various counsellors, and various people, school counsellors, psychologists that were brought into the childcare centre, and the psychiatrist as well. He was diagnosed initially with childhood depression, and medication was suggested at age 4, can you believe? Not only for my son, but for myself as well. Childhood depression, ODD, which is oppositional defiant disorder, and ADHD as well. And they were all diagnosed before he even started school. So when, and I'll let you, I'm not going to read these out, but if you're a multitasker and you can read as I'm talking, in his second last childcare centre, so the year prior to kindy, he was in a centre where they really, really struggled with him, and they actually decided to keep a communication book. Now, one might think that was a great idea, but it was very, very stressful for both myself and Andrew, because unfortunately in that communication book, even though the carers were doing their very best, 90+% of the communication in this book was about all of the negative things that he did. So all of the misdemeanors, the people, the kids that he hurt, the mess that he made, throwing chairs and hitting kids, etc. So when I went to pick him up from kindy every day or from childcare, I got presented with all of the the challenges, all of the negative things that he was actually doing throughout the day. So it was really, really challenging. And as I said, we had 5 childcare centres in our town, and he went to each and every one of them. And luckily, the 5th one actually had a little bit of headway with him, which was fantastic. Sorry, I'm just tuning back into the Facebook page there. Okay. So his first day of school, he was very photogenic, wasn't he? He was a very cute little boy and had that kind of mischievous sort of look to him. So he looks happy enough, but it was a very, very stressful year. It was a regular kind of state, primary school that he went to in his first year, and he literally spent more time in time out than he did learning. We did have some happier days from year 1 to 5. We actually found out about a Steiner school, which was on the outskirts of our town, about a 45-minute drive. Andrew actually became the volunteer bus driver because nobody else would drive the bus if he was in it. But he did have happier years in those years. I mean, it was still a bit of a roller coaster. He broke his teacher's nose in grade 1, but it was a happier time for him because they were more open to him being an individual in the Steiner system, which was great. Okay, we actually moved interstate when he was in grade 5, and so he actually went to 2 primary schools in Victoria. So he was at the Steiner, no, he went to 3. He was at a regular school, then he went to the Steiner school, then the Steiner school unfortunately closed down, so we didn't want him to leave there, but it closed down, and he then had to go into a regular state school. Then when we moved to Queensland, he went into another regular state school, but that was very, very stressful. At this time, he was kind of 12 to 13 years old, and his behaviour was really starting to escalate. He had a pretty challenging time in year 6 in this primary school. So we decided then to send him to a private school. We thought, well, the private school, my upside down kind of thinking back then was a strict school, strict teachers. That's what he needed. He needed discipline, he needed order, he needed strictness. That was definitely the opposite to what he needed. By the first term of his second year at this school, he was actually asked to leave. He actually did achieve something at that school that he was proud of, but I'm not sure that my husband and I were, because he actually had a school record for the most number of red cards. So they actually had like a disciplinary system at that school where they went from yellow to green to blue to red. And most kids in their school career would never even get a red card, but he had the most in year 8 for anybody in the whole school. So the elderly female principal basically called us into her office and said, you've got 2 choices. You can voluntarily take him out of our school. Keep in mind, we were paying many, many thousands of dollars to have him in this school, or we will expel him. So of course we took him out voluntarily. He then went to a regular kind of secondary high school, and things went from bad to much worse, unfortunately. So then came the revolt, and this was really the most, stressful time in our parenting journey. As you can see with the word revolt there, isn't it interesting, the 4 middle letters, if you look at them around the other way, L-O-V-E spell love. So a lot of kids who revolt actually are really just looking for connection and relationship and love. And they don't know how to ask for it, and often we as parents don't know how to give it in a right side way up, if that makes sense. And I'll talk a little bit more about upside down as we go along this evening. So age 13 to 15 was definitely the toughest time yet for us. We had 10x the challenges that we had at age 3 to 5. So it's interesting, the pattern, isn't it? 3 to 5 and then 13 to 15. 13 to 15 was definitely, most definitely, probably the two most stressful years. I'm not sure if Andrew would concur with this. The two most stressful years I think that I've ever had to live. He went to 2 secondary schools in those 2 years. There was non-attendance or suspended for more days than he attended. He had a terrible reputation with teachers. We had many, many calls from the school. I knew the school number off by heart because it came into my phone so often. He was labelled as a troublemaker. He started mixing in the wrong crowds, both in school and out of school. He started getting into inappropriate behaviours and in some trouble with the police. And he basically, let's say, left school, but once again, he got asked to leave school at 15 with very poor school attendance and grades. So for the prior 12, 18 months, he really hadn't attended school very much. So one would say that he hadn't had much of an education in high school at all. And then thankfully the universe stepped in and we connected with our angel Frank. And this is why I'm so passionate about being a parenting coach, because if we had not have connected with our parenting coach Frank, I dread to think where our lives would be today. I really do. I know for sure that we would not have the beautiful connected relationships that we have now. I know that things would be very, very, very different for our whole family. So for that, I'm extremely grateful. Okay, so our yelling, nagging, threats and upside down parenting led to a very challenging and disconnected relationships in our family. So I'm going to share this little story, not because it brings me pleasure, it's actually probably something that happened in my role as a parent, as a mother, that I'm most ashamed of. Because one of these phone calls that we got from the school in about towards the end of the year, in November of my son in year 9, we got a phone call from the school to say that he'd got into a bunch of trouble once again, but it was serious this time. And, you know, we had to come down to the school and discuss it, and that he was going to be suspended for 20 days. And I'm like, holy bleep, what has he done, you know, to warrant a 20-day suspension, especially at the end of the year? And so and they rang to say that he'd run off from school. He wasn't at school. So this was after lunch. He'd run off from school. They didn't know where he was, but they were letting us know that he was not at school. So he did have a mobile phone back then, and I did try and call him, but of course, no answer. He did eventually come home, actually not too much later than he normally did at the end of the school day. And guess what I did? Did I come in with, you know, how was your day, son? You know, I heard that you had, some challenges. Tell me about it. Tell me your side of the story. You know, what happened? You know, let me listen without judgment. No, I did not do that. I completely parented upside down in a very negative way. I went straight into yelling, screaming, ranting. I can almost still visualize. I can remember where I was standing, and I can remember my body language. I can remember his body language. I was so angry. How could you do this to us? I'm fed up with getting these phone calls from the school. Why can't you behave yourself? What have you done this time? And I went on and on and on and on without once asking him what happened or his side of the story. And, you know, he's now taller than I am. He's 15. He's a bigger kid and taller than I am, which isn't hard. But after listening to a bit of that ranting and raving, he basically just said, bleep, 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 use your imagination, I'm out of here. And what do you do when your kid's that age? You can't grab them and say, stay here. You can't say, go to your room, because they're not going to listen to you. You're grounded. They're not going to listen to you. So he actually took off. And it is a story that I do tell in more detail in my Revolting Child book. However, just for the simplicity of sharing this evening, he was gone for several hours. We couldn't get hold of him. My husband eventually got home from work and he went looking for him in the car. I stayed at home in case he turned up. And now I'm talking about it's now 8, 9 o'clock at night. And my husband came across a young, I don't know if he was a friend, a young acquaintance that he used to hang around with. And he asked if he had seen our son, and he said, yes, I saw him a little while ago, and he was not in a very good state. And my husband basically found him in a similar state to what you can see here. That's not actually him, but that's kind of where he was at. He was in a stupor, a drunken stupor in the gutter. He was so out of it that he couldn't stand up. He didn't know his name. He didn't know where he was. He was just a blubbering mess. He had consumed who knows what in the prior 4 or 5 hours to get himself so inebriated. And my husband literally had to carry him home, and it took him 2 days to sober up, literally 2 days. And in that time, it was awful. And we did some coaching with our mentor in that time, because I know I was in that mindset once again to go in right upside down. You know, how could you do this? What did you take? What did you drink? You know, like all the negative stuff. But Frank actually coached us to just be there, unconditional love, you know, there to support him, not to, you know, try and, you know, punish him or ask him all the questions, just to be there to support him and to know that we're his biggest supporters and fans. And when he actually came out of that stupor and we didn't rant and rave and we didn't say you're punished and you're grounded for 6 months, which is what I would have normally done, his whole attitude changed, because he's like, something's going on here, you know, like this is not the normal way that mum would react. And that was the start of our healing journey. So, you know, this is pretty much where he was at then. And just a short time later, when the healing started, you can even just see the difference, you know, in his face. You know, he looks a lot happier and calmer here, doesn't he? But it was a beautiful healing that began. He began to mend his relationship with Big Brother Nathan, because that was a very, very fractured relationship, unfortunately, because of, you know, all of the negativity and because of our youngest son's behaviour. They did not have a good relationship at all. And I can tell you they now have an amazing relationship. They are great mates and they have a lot of shared interests and things that they do in common, which is lovely to hear. He also, the getting kicked out of school does have a happy ending. He went and actually got himself an apprenticeship on his own merit. He actually did 3 years in a plumbing apprenticeship, but that only ended because the guy who employed him, his business went under because of a marriage breakup or some such thing. And then my husband, who had been retired from his electrical business for 15 years, decided, why don't you become an electrician and come and partner with me? So they're now in their 11th year of working together. So Andrew, if you could just quickly, you know, just unmute and share, you know, why the dad's role is so important for our children, particularly for boys, but for both boys and girls. And, you know, just tell us a little bit about your journey and where things are at now.
Yeah. Thanks, Lillian. I guess I had no, like many men, I had no idea how important my role was and what a mess I was making of it at the time. And Lillian just shared a lot of her regrets. I guess we don't feel guilty because we learned from the process, but there was a lot to learn, and we're so grateful that we had the opportunity to learn it before we just completely lost our kids. You know, it's we're not necessarily born with great parenting skills, and I personally needed a coach, and Frank was that coach for us, and it's, I guess, the amazing positive that came from us experiencing what it was like to have a good coach through this process that had Lillian seek out the nurtured heart approach, because it's very much a systematic preemptive approach. So it's not about waiting till things go wrong and then coaching on how we could have done that better, which was how Lillian and I were coached in the first place. Through the Nurtured Heart approach, she's got a preemptive way of communicating. It's virtually a way of life, a way of talking to each other so that we don't inflame relationships. I think a lot of us men, I've always said that women grow up and have kids, men find themselves with kids and have to grow up. And a lot of us men find ourselves with teenage men in the house, teenage children, young adults in the house. And we haven't yet started to grow up ourselves. And I think one of the greatest realizations that I had through this whole process was that I needed to step up and grow up myself and start learning what worked rather than just some kind of programming that didn't work when I was a kid, not very well because adults were resented for it. There's a better way of doing things, and I had to admit that what I was doing wasn't working and that I need a better way to approach being a parent. The outcome is, as you can see in those photos, we've had just about very close to 11 years of working. Most of that time is spent within 6 meters of each other. And we've never had an argument. We've never raised a voice. I cannot at this point imagine raising my voice to our boys again. It's kind of pretty foreign now. And I'm somebody that in the past has probably reacted pretty quickly, way too quickly to things. And so please seek information from Lillian. But if you're a husband listening to this call right now, it's time to step up. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate you sharing. And Andrew's role in our journey was very substantial. As a matter of fact, he really took on our initial learnings from our parenting coach a lot better than I did. He was more coachable than I was. I was a teacher, I thought I knew stuff. I had to unlearn a whole lot of stuff, but I tell you what, it took me a little while to be totally transparent with you. But boy, was it worth it. So this is our beautiful family here, Andrew and I. That's our youngest son with his beautiful partner, Amy, and that's our eldest son, Nathan, who you'll meet shortly. So how did I find out about Nurtured Heart approach? It's interesting because what we learned from Frank, as Andrew said, it was more anecdotal, like we would have a situation, we would coach, like we were on the phone to him. He was in America, by the way. We never had actually met him, and we've never even seen him because all of our interactions were on the phone. We didn't do things like Zoom back then. So I actually was at an event for a team, like there were psychologists and people who were interested in youth. And I got speaking with a psychologist, and we were just conversing. I asked her what she did, and she said, "What do I do?" And when I shared with her, what I was learning and teaching as a parenting strategist, she said, "Oh, I've just heard about that. Is that the Nurtured Heart approach?" And I'm like, nope, I've never heard of the Nurtured Heart approach. What is that? And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I've just heard about it. It's amazing." So I wrote it down in my notebook, and then I went home and did what people do and Googled it. 5 hours later, literally 5 hours later, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so in alignment with what we learned from Frank. But as Andrew said, it was a whole lot more systematic. And I'm like, this is exactly what I've been looking for, not just for me as a parent, but for me as a parenting coach as well. So Howard, and it wasn't in Australia in 2013, there was nobody teaching it yet. But luckily soon after there was a psychologist who did start teaching it. And then the beautiful founder, Howard Blasser, came out to Australia in 2014. and I did the very first certified intensive training then with him. So I was one of the very first trainers. And then last year, I actually upgraded my qualification and did my training to be an advanced trainer. So this is something I'm hugely passionate about. The Nurtured Heart approach is actually now 30 years old. I have a great relationship with Howie. As a matter of fact, I asked him to do a little personal introduction for us here in Australia. So I'll just quickly play that for you.
Hi, Lillian. Hi, my friends in Australia. I am so happy you found your way to the Nurtured Heart approach. You're in the best of hands, and I hope you enjoy the ride. It will be revealing and fun and empowering. Be well.
Thanks, Howie. Howie himself was a very intense and challenging child, as he admits on many occasions. Okay, so what is the Nurtured Heart approach? Now, it takes me months to really teach this properly. I like to really take it out over a long period of time to really give people the opportunity to learn the intricacies of this. It's like learning a new language. It's like, imagine if you were going to German classes, you couldn't just do 2 or 3 one-hour classes and then go and speak German fluently. This is a way of being, as Andrew said. It's a whole new way of relationship and communicating. Now, initially, when Howard used to work specifically with neurodiverse kids and parents of, particularly ADHD kids back in the day, and initially, the Nurtured Heart approach was introduced for ADHD kids and more intense and challenging kids. But we've come to realise over the years that it really is an approach or a way of life to help all children to flourish. And dare I say, all people to flourish, all relationships to flourish. So the Nurtured Heart approach is designed to awaken children to who they really are as an amazing, incredible person. And that's what I love about this so much. Improvement isn't good enough is our motto. It only brings about temporary change. So we want to bring about transformation. So I'm only going to be able to cover this reasonably quickly and briefly this evening, but there are 3 core components to the Nurtured Heart approach, or 3 stands. And when you think about a stand is very purposeful, isn't it? If you stand for something, you get very clear, you get very resolute, you get very precise. You can't take a stand when you're wishy-washy. So when we take a stand on learning and implementing the Nurtured Heart approach, we are taking a stand that we are going to communicate in relationship in a whole different way, and we are going to get a whole different result. So the 3 stands are: stand 1 is absolutely no, stand 2 is absolutely yes, and stand 3 is absolutely clear. So let me run through those quickly. Stand 1, I refuse to energize negativity. Now, if you think about that story that I shared with you when our son got into trouble that day, all I did was energize the negativity. If you think about the communication book that I shared with you when he was in preschool, all it was about them energizing the negativity. Most of my parenting, even though I consider myself to be a positive person, and I was even recognized as being a positive teacher when I was teaching, but when it came to parenting my beautiful, intense and challenging child, I energized negativity with precision. I did it really, really well. So stand 1 is I refuse to energize negativity. It takes a bit of effort to learn how to do this, but I tell you what, it's really worth it. I will not reward negativity, which includes disruptions and outbursts that distract children from their greatness, with elevated energy, connection, or relationship. And I will be intentional to watch where my energy is flowing. And that's one of the key components of this, is actually not focusing so much on what's going on with the child, but how you react and where you are placing your energy. You may have heard of this saying, where attention goes, energy flows, and then results show. So the same is with your relationshiping. Where you place your attention, your energy goes, and they're the results that you get around those relationships. show as a result of where your energy goes. So the great thing is there's no mandate in this to never drop the ball or else on this stand. So if you do find yourself energizing the negative, we have something that we teach in stand 3, which is the reset. So you can just switch it or reset yourself back to what's going right. And even if you get to the point where you go way, way, way down that bumpy road into badlands of negativity, you can find your way back in to this stand in the space of a single breath. So it's just a matter of stopping and switching your thoughts and choosing another way. And we teach you how to do that in stand 3. So stand 2 is absolutely yes. And this is my favorite stand. I relentlessly create and energize positivity and success. I energize and nurture first-hand experiences of success. I will work immediately to identify, describe, and express appreciation for steps, large and small, a child takes in manifesting his or her positive choices and intrinsic greatness. I will actively initiate opportunities for children to be successful. So now that we've established where we don't want our energy to flow in stand 1, we now need to be able to key into where we do want our energy to flow, but at even more heightened levels than we ever have before. So it's absolutely yes to showing up in big ways when things are going right, or even the baby steps towards going right. We call them making miracles out of molecules. So we take the smallest little molecule and we turn that into a miracle, as opposed to making mountains out of molehills, which is what most of us tend to do, which is very negative. Okay, so let's, and stand 3. What happened to stand 3? Oh, there we go. In stand 2, we have the various recognitions that we teach as well. So I actually teach these recognitions over a couple of weeks because there's a fair bit involved. So we've got 4 recognitions. Active recognitions are where you just watch, describe, and document what the children are doing. So you're actually acknowledging that you are seeing them and recognizing them. Stand 2, which is my favorite, which is the experiential recognition, which is where you acknowledge the behavior, but also the appreciation of the quality that that behavior shows. So what does that show about that child? That shows that you have great self-control. That shows that you have compassion. That shows that you are kind. That shows that you have integrity and respect, whatever it is that shows. And the proactive recognitions, which is actually something that took me a little bit to get my head around, which is appreciation of rules not being broken. So when you think about even the most intense and challenging child, they cannot be breaking rules 24/7. So when they're not breaking rules, that means we can recognize them for following the rules. And then there's creative recognition, which is noticing and appreciating what's happening in the right direction. And we do something called hijacking. So we actually hijack the children to success, which is awesome, particularly for those more intense and challenging children. And then stand 3 is about clarity. So absolutely clear. I set and enforce clear limits and clear consequences in an unenergized way. And that's actually the key, that it's unenergized. I will consistently enforce rules and provide immediate consequences each time a rule is broken by the way of a simple form of consequence that we call a reset. Oh my gosh, this is a breath of fresh air when it comes to consequences. I will recognize the child in the moment they have reset and then create the next moment as an opportunity for success. So it's a beautiful way of enforcing consequences by, recognizing them for their successes the very second we can. So we teach the reset. And the reset is the key to consequences and getting back into the positive zone. So we teach the reset both through modeling the reset ourselves. So as parents, for us to parent our children and have positive and empowering and heart-centered relationships, we need to be in the right space. So imagine if you're very escalated, angry, peeved off, mad, ropeable, you can't be positive. You can't come in with the stand 2 because you're not in the right place. So we need to learn to reset ourselves so that we can then come back in and view the situation in a more positive way. And we actually teach something to the children which is so powerful in the reset, that we actually teach them the reset so that we don't need to enforce harsh consequences, timeouts, taking away privileges, and all the typical kind of things that we currently do that usually don't work, if that makes sense. So Laura actually and her husband Scott did one of our courses recently. She has 3 young boys. Her eldest son at the time of her doing the course was just turning 14, and he was an intense and challenging child. And she loved the program. She said the Nurtured Heart approach is an amazing program that just makes so much sense. It's what we all know to be true and how we all want to be. But Lillian gives strategies and techniques to use every day that make natural parenting work easily and effortlessly. And the kids love it and respond immediately to this style of parenting. So Laura is actually a nurse. Naomi also loved the course. She said, my experience with Lillian and the Nurtured Heart approach was absolutely heart-opening, and I highly recommend this to everyone. I'm a parent with 2 children and I support children in foster care. After learning this approach and sharing it with my kids, I have nothing but praise. I'm so grateful to have found something that really works, that feels authentic and from the heart, like I've always believed parenting could be. It's beneficial for everyone, but especially higher energized, sometimes traumatized children who really struggle to be connected and feel love and belonging. I have my own very energized, strong-willed child that I never wanted to squash down, but really struggled to know how to support their needs in a positive and fulfilling way. And after many years of consulting professionals and trying different things, it's clear to me that it's real relationship with your child that wins in the end. And that's absolutely so true. And NHA is the foundation for really connecting and building that relationship foundation with your kids and families. I love it that much. I'm going to become a trainer in this method and continue on my foster care families journey and support as many children as I can. Thank you, Lillian. I'll be forever grateful. So the people who actually do this course really do get great results. Toys R Us. So Howie is actually a great teacher. He actually teaches a lot through stories. So I love the Toys R Us story. And when you think about it, we are our children's most exciting toys. And as a human, as a living person, we have a zillion different ways to be interesting. And when you think about it, when kids get a new toy, they enthusiastically explore it. They kind of want to know what it has to offer. They want to find the exciting and the compelling features. And then they probably figure out the parts of the toy that are boring. And once they designate a feature as boring, they kind of write it off, don't they? And they don't go back to it on purpose. So if you think about it, how are we like toys as adults? If you look at all the ways that we move, all the ways that we're physically active, and look at all the emotions we can have, not just happy, glad, and sad, but all of our unique versions of those, we have by far the greatest features of any other toys. And guess what? We are the ultimate entertainment center for our kids with the greatest features, remote control and all. So if you combine all of our features, we're just a one-stop entertainment center for our kids. And it's pretty obvious to them where our buttons are. So who's figured that out, right? So once children have experienced those features of ours, it kind of sets the bar really high for what's energetically possible with us. So when you think about it, and if you really honestly think about your parenting, when things are going right, we might do a good job, thank you, well done, pat on the back. We call that junk food praise. And that kind of becomes the boring toy features in comparison to the blinking lights and the bells and whistles that negativity and non-compliance bring out. And if you think about it, we're pretty boring when things are going right for our kids. So, when they are behaving, cooperating, playing nicely, self-entertaining, getting things done, doing their chores, getting their homework done, we don't necessarily come in with really juicy recognition and acknowledgement. We might do that kind of junk food praise, but we don't come in with the really juicy recognition. But when things are going wrong, that's when we really come to life. Our response to the positive really pale in relation to those for the negative. And we basically inadvertently, not on purpose, but inadvertently show children that they get more from us from negativity. And I talk about this a lot in my, my courses and in my lives and my TV show that I do. And this is what we call upside down parenting. So traditionally, we focus on what's going wrong. And that's the traditional way that we come in and teach rules. If the child's being disrespectful, for example, we'll then give the lecture about, being disrespectful and what it means to be respectful. Even if we say it in a kind and gentle voice, we're still giving energy to the rule broken or to the thing that we don't want to grow, if that makes sense. So if you think about some examples of when your buttons were pushed, the things that really made you react vibrantly, think about your last 24, 48 hours of parenting, if you're a parent on this call. Think about when you came more to life with your children. So just think back to, your interactions with your kids over the last few days. Did you come more to life when they were being cooperative, well-behaved, playing quietly? Or did you come more to life when there was a negative situation, when the kids weren't listening, when they were breaking rules, being uncooperative, disrespectful or arguing, for example? For most of us, if we were being totally transparent, it would be the latter. When we're much more heightened by the negativity, that's when we come to life. Our eyes bulge, our face goes red. I love, the hair. So that's when all the threatening and the punishing and the reprimanding and the nagging and the lecturing and the yelling happens. That's when we give most of our energy, most of our relationship to our kids. And that's when they learn that they get more of us, the toy features, they get more of us when they're doing the wrong thing than when they are doing the right thing. And if you think about it, it's a little bit like a watering can. I've actually got my watering can handy. Where is it? Here it is. I actually made this little water. I didn't make the watering can, but I put some stickers on it. Water what you want to grow. What are you watering and giving energy to? So if you think about it, if we filled our watering can with beautiful, clean water and put some, nutrients, etc., into it, would we go and take that watering can and water the weeds? Would we? Let me know in the chat. No, we wouldn't go and water the weeds because we don't want the weeds to grow, do we? What would we go and water? The plants, the herbs, the veggie patch, the flowers, the trees that we want to grow. We wouldn't purposefully go out into the yard and go, oh, there's a weed, let me water it. Oh, there's a weed, let me water it. I want the weeds to grow. Usually we don't do that, right? And it's the same with our relationshiping. We don't want to water what we don't want to grow. So when you're interacting with your children or with anybody, as a matter of fact, with your partner, with your, other family members and loved ones, your colleagues, friends, water what you want to grow. Ask yourself, is this something that I want to grow? And before you give it energy, if it's not something you want to grow, don't give it energy. Okay, so that's the watering can analogy is really handy. Just imagine you've got a watering can with you all the time, and before you go to open your mouth, am I about to water the plants that I want to grow, or am I about to water the weeds? If it's the weeds, stop, reset, take a deep breath, ask yourself, what is it that I want to grow here? And don't give energy to what you don't want to grow, but give lots of beautiful energy to what you do want to grow. So upside down energy, and this is how some children live their life. It really becomes a pattern for them. And kids are really smart, right? And they work this out even really young. And today, even on my TV show, I talked about even from a baby. And if you think about a baby, when a baby isn't able to communicate via words, what do? When they want or need something, they cry. So they actually get to figure out that they get their favorite toy, which is usually mum in the early, mum or dad. They get their attention when they cry. And then as kids, grow older, they get attention by doing the wrong thing. you know, as far as babies go, you know, the old philosophies of only pick them up, you know, at certain times, and, you know, let them, you know, cry, you know, let them cry and all that sort of thing. Like, we really should be nurturing them and showing them that they don't need to cry or be upset for us to nurture them. And as little kids, they actually learn that to get more of their favorite toy of mum or dad or grandma or whoever it is, they get that in a certain way, and they usually, unfortunately, put two and two together, and they learn that they get the greatest response to negativity. And that's how they perceive love. You know, that's for them connected relationship. So that love relationship kind of flows to a greater degree. The kids kind of even unconsciously think this: I get more love, more relationship when I do things that mum and dad don't like. And some kids come to think that that the main time they receive focused quality time is when they've broken a rule and they get a lecture or a reprimand. So, you know, mum and dad can say they love good behaviour all day long, but the truth of the energy that the child deeply feels is being loved or connected more when things go wrong, because that's when mum and dad really show up. And the kid, once again, it's not necessarily conscious. So let me know if you're relating to this. It's not necessarily conscious, but the kids go, well, they're barely there when I do the right things. You know, I might get a thank you or a good job at the most, which we call junk food praise. So yeah, it's upside down energy. And I know for one that I was doing so much more upside down parenting than right side up. And one of my, you know, biggest passions is now to help families to teach parents to parent right side up, to give more connection, more relationship to kids when things are going right than when they're not going right. And that's what we do in that instance, is we actually build their inner wealth. I better get moving. So Maria is another person who has done one of my courses. I've just got a quick little video from Maria here.
Hi, I'm Maria, and I've been in the Nurtured Heart program with Lillian Reiki for the last few weeks, and I've found the program very supportive. What I love most about the program is that it brings together the characteristics and the values that you really want to instill in your children that will support them, not just for now, but for the rest of their lives. So I can't recommend the program enough. As challenging as parenting is today, we all need tools, regardless of who we are, that can support us to create children that are resilient and can handle the world that they're born into. And that's what I really, really love about this program.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. And we've got Sharon as well. So Sharon is a mum, a stepmom, a teacher, a life coach, an emoji coach, and a family support whisperer. So Sharon follows my work a lot, and she actually recommends it to a lot of her clients as well. So let's just quickly listen to Sharon. Oops. Here we go.
Hi everyone, this is Sharon Chamelo. I am sorry I can't join you on Lillian's masterclass. I wish I could, but I am going to be away because I'm on school holidays. So I am a mum and a teacher and a coach for families, and I've just been doing Lillian's 9-week Nurtured Heart Approach course, which has been just amazing learning, especially for my teaching. It's really helped me with my teaching. But as a step parent, it's really helped me too to understand about focusing on the positives and not the negatives. I'm still learning how to do that, but the learning from Lillian is definitely there. It's a really great course. It's very structured, and certainly naturopath Nate has been amazing as well with all the information that he supports Lillian with. So I really appreciate meeting Lillian and coming into the course and sending lots of my people in my family's group to Lillian's work. and Nathan's work. And yeah, I hope you all have a great masterclass without me. I will watch the replay and yeah, enjoy the evening. Thanks, Lillian. Bye.
Thank you, Sharon. So Nathan is going to join us now. Thanks, Nathan. And Nathan, for those of you who haven't met or know Nathan, is my eldest son. He's a naturopath, a nutritionist and a herbalist with about 13 or 14 years of clinical experience now at Big On Good Health Medical Clinic. He was trained and mentored by a holistic medical doctor to expand his treatment skills. He has a huge amount of knowledge and has become very, very interested in this work that we do with parenting and helping parents to have healthy relationships with their children and themselves. So I'll hand over to Nathan. Nathan can tell us a little bit more about himself, and yeah, I'm sure he's going to share something really interesting with us tonight. Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you for the great intro. And so, yeah, that's my background. I was really lucky to go from, finishing my first degree and meeting this amazing doctor and being mentored by her for 13, 14 years. And while I was finishing my other 2 degrees. And so I've got a unique experience in working with a team of holistic doctors and kinesiologists, other naturopaths, chiropractors, and even psychologists. And so nowadays, when I see patients, it's so much more than, diagnose their condition and give a nutrient or a supplement. It's all about the psychology, the belief systems, the energetic systems. I tie it all in together. And I guess tonight I want to give you a quick snapshot of a few different areas that you may not have heard of before, but I find has a big impact when implemented or even just looked at. And it gives a lot of, that's why, that makes sense, or aha moments when you start to look at what methylation, what pyrrole disorder is. And so often I see a child misbehaving and I think what's happening on the outside is only a very small reflection of what's happening internally in their body. They are feeling so out of balance internally that all of the energy that is being built up has to go somewhere. And so then you're seeing their not so great behavior. And then it becomes their learned behavior and a conditional thing where certain energy is given into it, like Lillian's been talking about. But essentially our brain is continually making all these neurotransmitters and chemicals. It's probably the most amazing pharmacy there is. No drug company can come close to doing what our brains can. And so when it does use neurotransmitters like serotonin, noradrenaline, GABA, dopamine, it does this to make us feel calm and collected. And these materials are usually found in our diet and produced and then broken down in the gut. And so if we're not eating these nutrients, it all starts from the diet. Like, what are we eating? What are we feeding our children? Because if we can't keep up with supplying these amino acids and nutrients, then our brain doesn't really have the raw ingredients to make the neurotransmitters to keep us calm and collected in the first place. And so the neurotransmitters is what usually a one child, you might have 2 kids and one is nice and calm and collected, the other one not. The neurotransmitter might be a big part of why one can be calm and why the other can't. So as we go along, I'll sort of tie in how some genetics and neurotransmitters and gut all sort of tie together. And how looking at these things independently, but also treating them collectively, is going to make a big difference. So moving on next, we see that we often ourselves feel not so balanced. And so, so we have good days and we have bad days. Children are no different. Sometimes if we make too much of one neurotransmitter and our brain is firing too much, it's very hard for us to be calm, be thinking about what we're doing, our actions. Instead, it can make us feel anxious, worried, manic. We get labeled with ADHD or quick to temper. And so sometimes the neurotransmitter can swing the other way. It can make us just, unmotivated, don't have any interest in doing anything. Be told multiple times what to do and we still don't do it just because our brain is not making the correct neurotransmitter to get us up and moving. It's unbelievable what a difference it makes between not enough, too much, and just the right amount. Next. So genetically, we can only really say 10% of the problem can be down to genes, and you can do something about that 10%. But some of the genes are responsible for how well we can make these neurotransmitters and how well they work. And so there might be a condition like methylation or pyrrole that is creating like a blockage to these pathways working properly. At the same time, the environment that we live in is going to cause our bodies to go through a lot of oxidative stress. And oxidative stress, which I'll talk about in the next couple of slides, puts a big burden on our body. So if there's any vulnerabilities anywhere else, this oxidative stress is going to create a problem. And regardless of having enough the materials to make the neurotransmitters, if you have oxidative stress at the same time, now your body's got more than one thing going on it's struggling with. So epigenetics is a technical word for the environment. The environment is what influences our genes to then switch on or switch off or upregulate or downregulate our own functions within our body. So this could be something good or it could be something bad that's in control from our environment, the epigenetic effect. And so long-term, epigenetics can cause a lot of cell damage, results in disease, aging. It impacts the way we repair. And the only real thing that we can do about it is to try and increase our antioxidants, increase our redox molecules, our sirtuin genes. But if we have control over our environmental impacts, then all of a sudden you're not having to increase these things. You're not fighting on the defensive, you're being preventative. Next. So how can we influence this epigenetic process? So a combination of genetics, emotions, physical and psychological, are triggers to these things. And so when we look at, well, now that we know the triggers, we can figure out what can we do to prevent them. Next. So as a visual for oxidative stress, think of an apple that you cut in half. One half, you might put something like an antioxidant on it, like lemon juice. The other half you leave as per normal. Eventually it's going to go brown. This is oxidative stress. The cells are becoming damaged. It's the same thing of how we age. This is amplified if we've got a virus, bacteria, fungus, parasite, we're stressed, we're in a toxic environment, we're psychologically stressed. This oxidative stress process happens more rapidly than normal, and it deprives our body of all the nutrients that we would need to usually be put aside to sustain us and keep us living healthily. They're just used up like that. And again, if your environment's not the best, your gut's not the best, you don't have the great diet, you're not pushing them back in, then you're going to start to find some problems. Next. There's a good website there on the slides that you can jump on. And you can see that, unfortunately, children are born toxic. 287 chemicals are detected in the umbilical cord blood alone. And these are scary stats. I do a lot of heavy metal testing using the Leo scan and previously the hair tissue mineral analysis, showing amounts of lead, cadmium, arsenic, mercury in children, especially aluminium. It's like they haven't lived a life to even accumulate these yet. So it's unfortunately coming from mums. And even more of it is stored in the bones. So as they get older and as we get older and our bones start to break down, we're releasing even more heavy metals and contributing more at that point to our own body's oxidative stress load. And pyrrole disorder, which I'm about to explain in the next slide, is made worse with oxidative stress and at the same time causes oxidative stress. You get stuck in this cycle. Next. So pyrrole disorder is a genetic predisposition to producing an abundance of cryptopyrroles, which trigger the oxidative stress. As our body is creating something called hemoglobin to help carry the iron and oxygen around, a byproduct is the cryptopyrroles. And it is a neurotoxin, so our body tries to get rid of it. As we try to get rid of it, it actually drags a lot of zinc and B6, manganese, omega-6 out of our body at the same time. And so if we have this genetic predisposition, it means we're not very efficient at this process of creating hemoglobin, and too many cryptopyrroles are made, which means we're going to lose a lot of those vitamins and minerals. There's a great website. If you look up Dr. Walsh, type in pyrrole disorder, the Walsh Institute, there he explains pyrrole symptoms very well. You don't need to have all the symptoms, but some of those are listed on the slide just there. And so, unfortunately, if you yourself or your partner have had some of the symptoms, it's likely that your children may also. The second genetic predisposition is methylation. Methylation is such an amazing process. It does so many different things. It's what your DNA, it's controlling your DNA's ability to send out signals and tell our body what to do. Methylation is like a bookmark that our DNA uses to try and figure out, I need this function to happen. I look up these set of instructions. I use well, if your methylation is out, since it is usually a undermethylation problem, being 22% of the population, I give it an analogy that imagine a set of traffic lights. One is green, one is red. It means things are flowing. Information is coming into our brain that we are visually or auditory seeing or hearing, and it's being processed. We're assessing a certain situation and thinking, what do we think about this? Our brain releases neurotransmitters. We're going to be happy about this. We're going to be calm about this. And all of a sudden, the red light goes green, and off that signal goes, and we feel a certain way. With an undermethylator, it's like both traffic lights are red. It never goes green, or very, very delay action before it goes green. And so our brain is just sat there. And so imagine you're at a set of traffic lights and both are red. You're going to be frustrated, irritated. You're going to get road rage. You're going to get angry. This is typical of an undermethylator because the brain is so slow to process this information. It's just backing up and you feel it energetically. It just feels terrible. On the flip side, an overmethylator is probably about 8% of the population. And this is where both traffic lights are green. The information that comes in is not even assessed before it goes out again. So have you ever seen those people or have one in the family that just talk so fast, just like, where's your filter? You're not even thinking about what you're saying. You're just saying stuff as it comes into your mind. You can't sit still, you can't relax, you're all over the place, probably an overmethylator. And there's some amazing supplements that we use to correct these methylation and pyrrole disorders. But first, we need to test to see where we're at. And interestingly, when it comes to different antidepressants, this is the reason why some people who are on SSRIs, an antidepressant, feel so much worse because they're already an overmethylator. Next slide. Now, when it comes to methylation, there's a blood test you can do to see as of right now where your methylation's at. But the genetic side of methylation, there's like 8 to 10 genes involved in methylation. MTHFR is probably the main one that most people are aware of. And you can do a blood test or a saliva test to find out if you have a MTHFR gene dysfunction. But that only just tells you your potential that you're going to have an issue with methylation. And you don't know about your MTR or MTR or COMP gene or CBS or many of the other ones. In a nutshell, really, it's all about just taking the right nutrition, doing a couple simple tests to find out where you're at when it comes to your methylation. And if you really want to get into it, you can start doing gene testing so you sort of know from this point on, how pedantic do I need to be about keeping track of my methylation? Is it like just a short-term temporary thing that got out of control because of some other situations, like my oxidative stress was really high, my environment was really bad when it came to toxins, and I was constantly sick because of viruses, and I got leaky gut, and that's what led me to this methylation problem? or is it built into my genes? And so that's the difference between the two tests of when you would go and get a simple methylation test done, or when you'd go and get your genetic test done to look at your potential to methylate properly. So as a bit of a summary of what we can do, amino acids come from protein, plant-based and animal-based. And so the better quality proteins you're eating and the enough protein that you're having is going to give you the basic building blocks of getting enough amino acids to help your body make the neurotransmitters. But the typical nutrients you're going to need as well, like the zinc, the B6, the manganese, the magnesium, vitamin D, these are all the key essential nutrients that you're going to require. Being able to avoid oxidative stress. So looking at how toxic is my life? How toxic is my environment? What can I do to mitigate that? Can I turn Wi-Fi on at night, Wi-Fi off at nighttime? Can I change the type of water that I'm drinking to clean quality water? Can I change the type of personal care products I'm putting in my body and on my body every single day? What can you do to minimize the oxidative stress in your environment? And there's actually a lot that you can do. And then, obviously, as I mentioned before, let's get some testing done. The Pyrrole test is a urine test. And looking at when I was referring to before as the methylation by blood test, that's the zinc, the copper, the ceruloplasmin, and histamine are the ones, and homocysteine is actually missing from that list. They're the ones that we would do to get a snapshot of, as of right now, genetics aside, how are you methylating? And once we know that, we can formulate a plan of what to do to correct it and get it back on track. So hopefully that was a very good crash course when it comes to methylation and pyrrole and the gut and oxidative stress and our environment, of how that leads us in a way to correct some of these labels that are being given to our children or to ourselves. And when you combine that with the psychological reprogramming that Lillian's been talking about, that's when you start to see results. So hopefully you've got some value from that and you've learned something that you can start to implement.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Nathan's reception was a little bit dodgy. He's out in the sticks somewhere at the moment, so I really appreciate him jumping on, even though his reception was not perfect. But I hopefully, if everybody could just pop in the chat box if they could hear him okay, you will be able to go through and read the slides again in the replay if you wish to. So thank you, Nathan. Nathan is has a huge amount of both passion and knowledge when it comes to this topic. He works with me, with my clients, because I look at parenting and relationshiping and happy and healthy children very holistically. So yes, we have to look at the parenting side and the relationshiping side, but we also have to look at what's happening physically and emotionally, probably more on the emotional side even than the physical side, although the physical side's are very important as well, of course, but it's very holistic. We really need to put all of the ingredients in. So yes, thanks, Amanda, very educational. Yes, that was for sure. And we will get Nathan on some of our extended calls in our course as well to go through this in a little bit more detail. So thanks again, Nathan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, love. So who would love to enjoy, it's a loaded question, who would love to enjoy a happier and healthier home and children? So if you are like me, if you are sick and tired of the yelling, the nagging and threats, and it might not be all the time, it might be just sometimes, if you crave a closer, more respectful relationship with your children, if you want to gain cooperation with children rather than control, if you want your children to be both happy and healthy, not only today, but growing into their adult years, if you want to enjoy your day-to-day interactions with your children, if you just want your kids to listen and follow simple instructions, if you want to know that when your kids have kids, when you're a grandparent, hint, hint, kids, that you will be super connected, then you will really want to join us in our upcoming Nurtured Heart Approach course. So I have so many people who have done my course over the last couple of years or so that are addicted to my courses, like Sandra. She says, Lillian, I'm addicted to your courses, having now completed 3 of them. Not only have they helped with my relationship with my adult children, with my 3 grandsons, my husband, my mum. I love how she says, I've changed. I'm a different person. And she loves the Nurtured Heart community, how we, support and encourage each other. And yeah, so she's literally done 3 courses back to back because she just didn't want to, she wanted to just stay connected and continue to learn. Therese is much the same. She has done 2 of my courses as well. She was very kind in saying that Lillian is an exceptional teacher. Very grateful to have learnt from her passion for the Nurtured Heart approach, her love for people, gifted teaching style, life experience, and her own continued learning of the Nurtured Heart approach combined to make participating in her courses a very rich, enriching experience. And once again, Teresa came into this not with any young, intense or challenging children. She has 3 young adult children. But she's still got so much from it, just in dealing with her young, that photo is a few years old, so her kids are all in their 20s. So yeah, she got heaps from it, and she did 2 courses in a row as well. So thank you so much for sticking around. So we only have a few minutes to go, and I'm proud of myself that I should be done and dusted by 9 o'clock. So for those of you who stuck around, Andrew has been collating your names to go into a draw. We've got this cool little wheel of prizes thing that we'll use. So one person will win a holiday voucher. There will be 2 one-on-one calls, and also a 50% discount voucher for one of my courses, which would be a great thing to win if you are keen to do a course. So just while Andrew's getting that finished, I've just got a couple more slides to go, Andrew. So my why, and I've got a couple of slides for this one and another one at the very end. My why is that I'm so very grateful for my relationships with my family, with my husband, with my 2 adult sons, and my extended family as well. We practice the Nurtured Heart approach in our home, ongoing. We acknowledge and recognise each other for our strengths, for our weakness, not our weaknesses, but we acknowledge our weaknesses, yes. We recognise each other, for the things that we love about each other. And, I have this greatness jar where we can put little notes in, and we're a positive family. We're very connected. My son shares our home with us with his partner, and we get on really well. We have meals together, and we talk and we laugh together. My 2 sons are very close and connected. They have a lot of mutual interests. They hang out together, they go camping together, they work on cars together. They're very connected as brothers now, and that certainly wasn't that way when they were younger. So and all of our interconnected relationships are so amazing, and I'm so grateful because I really know that things could have gone quite differently. They really could have. I know that when my son was a teen, he basically said he was going to be out of here by the time he was 17. I'm not going to be living at home. And now he's 29 and we still share a house together. So, that's got to mean something pretty positive. So, yeah, so that's my big why. And I want other people to be able to experience this as well. So I'm currently running a 24-week course, and we're up to week 5. And because I've got people who are coming in all the time wanting to join this course, I've actually going to now offer something new that I haven't offered before, and it's called a rolling course. So basically people will be able to come into this course whenever it's convenient for them. So you don't have to wait until I start the next course. You can basically come into the rolling course at any time you desire. So you will actually have access to the 14 weekly recorded online content sessions that I'm currently doing with the 24-week course, and they will be in a secure vault that you will have access to, and they're all 60 to 90-minute content sessions where you will learn all of the intricacies of the Nurtured Heart approach. We do those calls every second week. Then on the in-between week, we actually do a discussion and Q&A week. So you'll both have access to the recordings that are in the vault, so any that we've done to date, and you will also be able to join us live, which is really important, to come on live every fortnight to discuss what you've learned, what you've been implementing, the wins you've had, the challenges you've had, questions you might have. Those discussions in those intimate groups are, I believe, where a lot of the growth and learning really happens, because yes, you can listen to the content, learn the content, practice the content, but it's when we really nut it out and talk about it and discuss it that a lot of the growth happens. I really believe in taking this learning over a longer period of time, because it is like learning a new language. I don't want people just to get information and then go off and figure it out for yourself. I really want to be able to handhold, I guess, as you're learning this, and help you to tweak it and improve it and really get the most from it. And I've come to that conclusion through doing different types of courses and getting feedback from people. So I listen to the people, and when they, say I want longer, or we need more of this. Hence why people were doing 2 and 3 courses in a row, because they wanted to keep learning. So with the rolling course, we have access to the 14 weekly recorded sessions. You have access to learn from those in the group through prior discussion and Q&A sessions. These sessions can be accessed and listened to weekly or at your own pace. So some people who are busy, some parents who are busy, actually like the self-paced learning. So you can actually do the learning in your own time, and then you can just come on for the discussion calls. So that's a new thing, because previously you've had to come on live every week. So you don't need to do that now. You can just come on live every fortnight. So 11 of those sessions, 14 sessions, will be directly teaching the Nurtured Heart approach. There'll be 3 full sessions from Nathan on the physical and emotional health and wellness, which will be like 60 plus minutes of a particular topic that you will really learn so much from Nathan. Then each fortnight you can join in our live and interactive session with our Q&A, and I call it AMA, Ask Me Anything. That's where we have the discussion, time for sharing, etc. You will receive a 50-page course workbook to print off, which is including for your note-taking and your home play activities during the course. You will also receive the hard copy of Howard Glass's book, Transforming the Intense Child Workbook, which we actually use as we're going through the course as well. And you've got particular readings that you do on that each week. And as well as all of the course content and the live sessions and the 2 books, you have a one-on-one hour personalized coaching and mentoring session with myself, and that can be used at any time during the course, and that's valued at $160. And then you also have a one-on-one consult, a health consult with Nathan, which is absolutely so valuable. And of course, recordings are available if the live sessions are missed, or if you want to recap. As a matter of fact, once you enroll in this rolling course, you will have ongoing access to that vault forevermore. So whatever keeps getting put into that vault, once you're a member of the rolling course, I'm calling it a 14-week course, but really it will be ongoing. You will have ongoing access to the vault and to the information and to the one-on-one sessions. So I'm actually offering this course at a price point that I feel is achievable for everybody at 2277, so 2,277. I love 7s, hence why I put 7s in all of my figures. Both of my boys were born on the 7th. So I do love to throw in an early bird special. So we have an early bird special for the next 48 hours. So for just $19.77, so that is a saving of $300. Plus an additional one-on-one personalized session with myself that you can use throughout the course. So that means you'll get 2 of those. There's an early bird payment plan, as you can see there, and then there's an after early bird payment plan as well, where it goes back up to the upfront price. If you have NDIS support and funding, you can also join us with your NDIS funding. I have about 5 families in my current course who have been able to join us through NDIS, which is fantastic that can happen. I have all the invoices, etc., set out for you so that you can claim that through your NDIS. So if you have access to NDIS, that we can work with you on that as well. but we can work out a payment plan that will suit you. If those payment plans aren't suitable, I'm pretty flexible, because I really want people just to get the value from this course. So yeah, these are some of the different courses. That's the course that I'm currently running now, the 24-week course at $3,777. But really, don't tell those people, but you're going to be literally getting all the same information that they're getting in that $3,777 course, but don't tell them. So yeah, I'm pleased to be able to offer that to you. So if you would like to be able to take advantage of the early bird offer and save that money and get the extra coaching call, either contact me on Facebook, on Messenger, or you can email me. And if you would like to book in a complimentary 30-minute call to ask me any questions, or to clarify if this is for you, or if you've got questions about the course, or if it's going to be for you, or just anything that you'd like to ask me, please contact me ASAP, because of course, if you want to get those questions answered before the early bird special is over, that only allows the next 2 days. So please do get in contact with me really soon. So just once again, while Andrew is finalising the names in the prize draw, I really just wanted to share one last quick story with you. So you can read these beautiful letters, which have all been written by my youngest son when he was 16 and 18 and so forth, and when he was in his early 20s. He has a beautiful way with words, just like his dad. But he is so grateful for the efforts that my husband and I have gone to for our family, not just for him, but for our family. And I just want to end with a story that fills my heart with so much love and gratitude, and is really why I'm so very passionate about sharing this journey. By the way, if you haven't read my Revolting Child book, you can download that for free at my website at parentsupportnetwork.com.au. I do really highly recommend you read that. Most people who start reading it don't put it down. It's about a 4-hour read. And yeah, it's our whole story from my pregnancy right through until he was just short of 16. But I was actually asked to do a couple of book launches when I wrote this book in 2009, because it was really a tell-all story. I had to actually get permission from my whole family, from my husband, from my eldest son, and from my youngest son, to share what I needed to write in this book. It's stuff that I had never shared openly. A lot of the stuff I had never shared openly, not even with my my family and my close friends, because I guess in total transparency, there was a level of shame of failing as a family, as a parent, or as a mother. And a lot of the stuff I just didn't want to share with people, because I wasn't proud of a lot of stuff. But here's the thing that really fills my heart with a lot of joy. When we were doing one of our book launches, and there was a couple of hundred or so people in the audience, and my husband and I had shared about our story and where our son was now. So keep in mind, this is about 10 months after, only about 10 months after he got kicked out of school. So it wasn't a long time. My son was invited along, and he came along. He was a little bit reluctant, but because he knew how important it was to me, he did come along. And anyway, somebody in the audience at the end of the Q&A put their hand up and said, "Can I ask your son a question?" And I kind of just, looked to the back of the room where he was, and he kind of shrugged his shoulders, and he's like, "Oh, I suppose, I don't really want to, but I suppose so." And the gentleman who asked the question, it was a really simple but profound question. He actually said, and he said directly to my son, "We've just heard your story from your mum and dad. What was it that took you from where you were just a few months ago to where we see you now, and to where we hear things are at now?" And I'm like, that's a really good question. Like, my ears were kind of, ready to hear the answer. And I could actually see him reflect for just a moment, and I could see his mind ticking over. And what he said has propelled me to be as passionate as I am about what I do. And here's what he said. He said, "When I saw the effort that my mum and dad went to be the best parents they could be. I just wanted to be the best son. And, you know, for me, that was worth every challenge we went through. It was worth the stress and the disconnect in our family. It was worth the challenges that our family experienced. There were things that I haven't shared tonight that you can read in the book, an attempt at suicide, you know, a lot of really pretty traumatic stuff that happened to our family. And when I saw the effort that my mum and dad went to be the best parents they could be, I just wanted to be the best son. So I'm going to leave on that note. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I truly do appreciate you sticking with us for the 90 minutes. I hope you gained something from it. If you would like to connect, if you would like to participate in our rolling course, if you have any questions about it, please connect with me as soon as you can. I'm happy to have a chat with you over the next few days, and I look forward to catching you all soon.